This morning, we're going to start in a seated position. We're just going to take a few minutes to kind of settle in, stretch the legs out of it, spine, just to kind of get ourselves prepared for the fact that we're going to sit here for a few minutes and breathe, which might sound like the easiest thing in the world, but for some people, that can be challenging. You know, you need to kind of let your body go loose, and you need to let go of things in your head as well. So whatever is causing any form of turmoil internally, physically or mentally, now is the time to try to let that go with some long, old exhales. So we'll let ourselves close the eyes and loosen the jaw. Just maybe having the teeth very slightly apart. Now we're coming into the sort of wintry months, late autumn, I guess. And, you know, a lot of colds and coughs around. So if you're finding breathing through the nose tricky, then by all means breathe in and out through the mouth. But otherwise, if you can, make that a nasal breath, allow yourself to work with that. The eyes open. Stretch the legs out briefly. For some people, that stretch won't be necessary, but for others, it'll be kind of gratefully received. So work with that as patiently as you can. Bring the legs back in. I'm going to bring heel to heel so the shins are down and out of the way. Lean forwards a little bit. Let myself take some weight into the wrists. It's hold cat's paws, involves rotating the wrist through 3 different ways. And as you can probably notice, I'm rocking very slightly from side to side. So I'm kind of alternating the weight between one wrist and the other. So rather than just being a sort of static weight bearing down, it's more movement based weight bearing. And then we'll turn the fingers outwardly, so the thumbs are forwards. And again, just let the body kind of sink some weight into those wrists. Trying to keep particularly that index knuckle down on the ground. So you might need to sort of press and stretch that into the floor a little more. And you'll feel that stretch then against the inside of the palm. And then finally, just for fun, we'll turn the hands towards us and lean as far forward as we can. And you want to allow the heel of the hands to be still on the ground. Funny bones pointing towards you. Shoulders relax back. Thumbs are pointing outwards. Fingers towards. And to come out of that, draw the tummy muscles in and pull yourself back up so you can lift the weight out. And just give those fingers and hands and wrists a little bit of a shake. We'll move gently onto all fours and come into cat-cow. And just move the block out to the side. We'll keep it sort of mid-line of the mat. The hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips, and about hip distance apart. Bootlaces down. Start to breathe in. Just draw the chest forward, slightly roll the shoulders back and tailbone to the sky. Tilt the pelvis to allow the spine to spring towards the sky. Draw the belly in. And spread that middle upper back and the shoulders. You might notice little sort of nooks and crannies that you can move into. First couple, keep them nice and slow. Also exaggerate the breath as a suggestion. And then when you feel like you've explored all the limits of those nooks and crannies and you know where they are and how they feel, you can move a little bit more fluidly with a more natural breath. So just drawing the tummy muscles in, so a little bit of a squeeze. And then we'll come back into neutral. We'll take the knees wide now and keep the toes and heels together. We'll sit back into child's pose. So ease onto the heels and then allow yourself to walk your hands out. We're going to bring the forehead to the ground. You can move the block under the head if it doesn't reach, but we're going to come up onto the fingertips and have the hands a little wider out than the shoulders. So you want to walk those fingers as far out as you can. But the idea of having the hands out wider than the mat, or wider than the shoulders, is that you're not pulling your shoulders completely around your ears. There's still a little bit of space to move and breathe into. Also to breathe into your belly and your side ribs. Feel them opening and stretch. And we'll lift up and look towards the hands again. And bring the fingertips back onto the mat. We're going to lift into down dog. So we'll tuck the toes underneath. Now we're just going to lift the knees about half an inch or an inch off the floor and hold that all fours position. So rather than the shoulders collapsing a bit, we want to press away and stretch out the back of the shoulders as much as we can. And we're pressing out through the heels so the legs feel like they're really firing up, not just holding us up, but doing some work as well. And the tummy muscles hopefully are drawn in. That's as a consequence of being in the pose. We'll move the hips back, keep the knees low as long as you can, and then let the hips move up into your down dog. Step the feet out to adjust into your sort of more preferential stance in your down dog. Ideally, I would say keep the heels off of the ground, so there's always a little bit of space to move into. I do know that some teachers would teach the opposite way around and press the heels into the ground. I think it's more a case of what feels right in your body. If you're an advanced practitioner and you have a very flexible, mobile body, that might be what feels good to you. But if you're more of a sort of a regular average Joe or Joe S, you might find that just pedaling the legs out lightly or bending the knees, allowing yourself to sink into the shoulders, kind of just finding your own way through that down dog. There are lots of technical points to down dog, but there's nothing wrong with saying you can kind of make it up as you go along. We'll come into plank, keeping the hips high, and then we'll just press back into that down dog. See how that feels. We'll come forwards again and press back. And come forward again on the exhale. And press back, breathing in, hips high. Flowing through again. Keeping the legs strong, pressing out through the heels. Last time into dog. Last time into that plank. As we take ourselves into down dog, we'll take the feet wide as the mat and allow the hands to walk back until the heels are on the ground, and then start to bend your knees so that you can bring your bottom down so it's more or less in line with your knees. So the thighs are now parallel to the floor and your ribs are sort of starting to dig into your own sides. Take a breath, allow yourself to roll your spine down so the shoulders and your back feel very loose. You can feel that kind of gentle tug along the entirety of your spine. Now on the exhale, draw the belly in and allow yourself to roll back up, pressing the legs through. Shoulders and head lift last. And then we'll take the hands high again, out to the side, through the center. I'm going to soften the knees a little, hinge forwards, and bring the fingers to the floor out in front. And then we'll soften the knees again and let ourselves to sink down into that very rounded back. Take a breath, use the exhale. And just noticing whether you're able to drive through both legs evenly. Or there's a little bit of a preference to the firing sequence. Maybe it's not as smooth and as regular as you'd like to think it was going to be. We'll bring the fingers to the floor again, and soften the knees, sink down, take our breath in, and use the exhale. Bring ourselves back up. As we take the hands out wide this time, we'll bring the feet together so the toes touch and leave a little bit of gap for the ankle bones. We'll soften the knees over the toes. First of all, we'll bring the thighs together. We're coming down into chair. So we'll sit back deep so we start to feel the weight lift out of the toes. Extend the hands forwards, following the line of the body, wider than the shoulders, palms facing in. Allow yourself to sit down a little more, using the sort of gravity of your arms to balance the fact that your bottom is way behind you, keeping the belly dry. Now we're going to bring the hands in towards the heart as we take a breath in and see if we can bring the right elbow over to the left side, whilst keeping the knees parallel to each other and the hips square to the front of the mat. Bringing the hips out to the side, trying to very much follow the center line of the mat, which if you have one painted on your mat, makes it a little easier. Otherwise, imagination comes into play. We'll roll around the opposite way. Just draw that top shoulder around and back. Pressing lightly into the hands. We'll come back to the center. Extend the hands out again. Let's start squeezing together. 2, 3, 4, 5, and let ourselves lift. Let the hands come out. And take the feet again, hip distance apart. Bring the hands into your heart. Exhale, hinge at the hips, soften the knees. Down into your regular forward bend. This time we'll take the arms out wide as we lift up. Little softness in the knees. Just like a reverse dive. Hands come high. And then we'll go out wide again to come down. And soften the knees, bring the hands to the floor. Let ourselves lift up again. Beautiful long breath to the sky. Slow exhale down. And one more time. And down. We'll bring the hands onto the hips. And let ourselves lift up. Put hands forward this time. Directly above the shoulders, palms in, keep the arms strong, hinge out, soften the knees. Let yourself to bend from the hips. Fingers on the floor. We'll take the hands out again and lift out, reverse of what we've just done. So you're definitely going to feel that in the legs. You might want to take that into a little back bend. Not a big one. Use your exhale, tummy in. Keep the body long. Hold it down. Throw the arms out. The softness in the knees. Use your exhale. To that little back bend. Take the breath in. All the way down for the final time. And the last lift up. And use the arms out wide. We'll slowly walk into the front of the mat. Just shake that out a little bit. And then bring the hand in towards the heart. Take a breath in. Hinging at the hips. We'll come down to the floor. Take a breath in. And send your right foot to the back of the mat into a lunge. Just keeping your knee over your ankle. Allow yourself to come onto the fingertips. Relax the shoulders a little bit. Lengthen the head out. Try and drop the hips so that you can press out through a long, straight back leg. Now drop the heel in to the center line. Toes out to the side, 45-ish degrees. We'll bring the hands alongside the body, lifting the torso a little. Taking the right arm out and lifting up into our warrior two. We'll take the hands high. And then extend it out over towards the front of the mat. Little breath in. Bring the hands to the floor. Spin the heel on the back foot, drop the knee. Untuck the toes and sweep the hands alongside your body. As you float the arms out, keep your ribs on the thighs. And then lift the entirety of your body and arms to vertical. Let the shoulders relax. Eyes towards the sky. Just working into that front hip flexor a little bit and the back. Fingers to the floor. Take a breath. Step back into our down dog. We'll come forwards into plank. We're going to take half plank. Knees to the floor if you need. Inhaling to up dog. Rolling over the toes into our down dog. We'll scissor the right leg, keeping the hips and shoulders square to the ground. Draw the knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through to the front of the mat. Press out through the back heel. Into that long lunge. Now we'll push off the toes into our forward bend. And bring the hands onto the hips and allow ourselves to lift. Bring the hands into the heart. So take the breath in. Exhale on the way down. We'll come up onto the fingertips. We'll add a half forward fold in and then fold down. Take a breath and send the left foot back and drop the heel in. Hands alongside the body. And we'll take the left hand up So we don't pause in the lunge quite so much. We've already done that. We'll take hands high, rotate, and lengthen out halfway. As a breath, pressing into the back foot, and then bring the hands down to the floor, spin the heel, drop the knee, and untuck the toes. Hands alongside the body, float the arms out. Draw the belly in, lift everything up. Press into the back shin a little. Then bring the hands back down to the floor. We'll step back to our down dog. And come forwards into our plank. There's elbows into the ribs, shoulders back. The up dog, long, strong legs. Roll over your toes into your down dog. And we'll scissor the left to the sky. Then draw the knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through. To the lunge, take a breath. Push off the toes. And we're into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and the lift up. We'll add a twist to that. Hands in towards the heart. And exhale down to the floor. Half forward bend. And fold it in. Take the right foot to the back of the mat. Drop the heel in. Hands alongside. Semi-lift of the body. Lengthen that right arm out and open up. Hands come high. Rotate out to the front of the mat. Little pause. Square the hips. Draw that front hip back a little bit. Bring the hands to the ground. You spin the heel and drop your back knee to the floor. Hands alongside the body. We'll take the lift up to the sky. Bring the hands down to the floor. We're going to tuck the toe on the back foot and lift the knee. Make sure your right hand is on the ground. We'll draw the left elbow up to turn into that front thigh, squeezing into the center line, and extend the left hand to the sky. Bring the hand back to the floor, then step back to down dog. Take a breath in. Come forward into the plank. Keep the hips high. Use your exhale to come into half. Inhale on the way back up to up dog. Roll it back into your down dog. We'll scissor the right leg. Draw the knee in towards the chest and bring the foot through. Take the breath in the lunge. Push off the toes into the forward bend and sink. Hands onto the hips. Let ourselves lift the soft knees. Hands to the heart. Exhaling down. Fingertip lift to the half fold. All the way down. Take the left foot back. Drop the heel in. Hands alongside the body. Allow ourselves to lift into our warrior twos. Hands come high. Rotate out. Pause. Draw back that left hip. Keep the back foot pressing down. Hands to the floor. Drop the knee to the ground, untuck the toes. Hands alongside the body. Swoop it out. And lift up. Press down through the back shin. Hands to the floor. Lift the back knee. Press out through a strong leg. Left hand on the ground. Right arm lifts into the twist. And we squeeze into the center line with the thigh. And it comes to the floor. And we step back to our down dog. Take the breath in, coming into plank, shoulders back, elbows into the ribs, not too low. Inhale high, and then back into our down dog. We'll scissor the left leg. Draw the knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through. Take a breath in the lunge. Push off the toes and fold. Hands onto the hips, and we let ourselves lift up. Take hands high. Both the shoulders, palms facing in. Allow ourselves to extend forwards and down. A step back, down dog. We're not staying there, we're going to use that as a transition. So into plank and knees to the ground. And allow ourselves to sit down onto the heels. Allow yourself to inhale the hands high. Now, interlace the fingers, and we're going to make an effort to lift the shoulders up around the ears and press those biceps into your ears. So your arms are really kind of locked. Pardon me, got hiccups there. Locked in. Now take a breath, keep the belly drawn in, press the tailbone down and back. Allow yourself to hinge forwards. Keep your head in line with your body and your hands over your head until everything touches the ground with the hands. And then you can separate them out as if you're in child's pose. Take a breath in. And use your exhale to roll your spine back up into a seated posture. Just dragging the hands along the floor as you go. And we'll take the hands high again. So a little swan flow, lift up. Really start to work out through the arms so the elbows are locked. Gently into position. As you exhale to come down, separate hands, breath in. A little tricky on the diaphragm. We get a little extra stretch in the spine for our efforts. Hands come high. Lift it up. Exhale down slowly. Separate the hands. Roll it back. Hands come high. Lock it out. And then we come back up. So we're going to lean back a little bit into this pose so that the palm of the hands can be on the floor and the knees on the ground. And try to lift the buttocks just a moment off of the heels and then tuck them forwards, the sitting bones, and then let them sink back down again. So you've moved from that sort of excessive arch in the lower back to a pelvis that more lines up with the position you're in. You're going to lean onto the left arm, take the right arm across. Now we're going to watch the fingers, allow the face and the eyes to track that hand as it goes up and out, and all the way to the back of the mat. So a big circle, and then out the corner of your spine, the hand comes to the floor, and then we'll do the same on the opposite side. So just pressing down through that right arm, so the shoulder is working rather than collapsing, and the other arm is obviously working nice and freely. So let the arms make those big, beautiful circles, and we're getting a little bit of movement in the neck as well as we watch that come down. You want to move slowly for the sake of your shoulders and for the sake of your neck, and also to follow your breath. Take one more side to play with. And then we'll just press the hands into the floor to lift back up. Take the hands forwards again, lifting up slowly onto all fours. We tuck the toes again and lift the knees just that ½ an inch off the ground. Pressing the hands into the floor, stretching the back of the shoulders out wide and tall. We'll move into down dog, low and slow. And then walk the hands into towards the toes. Hands onto the hips. We'll let ourselves lift up slowly. And then slowly take a walk into the front of the mat, just shaking everything out a little bit. Parallel, feet, front of the mat, hip distance apart. Hands into the heart as we take the breath in. And we'll exhale down to the floor. We're taking the right foot to the back of the mat and dropping the heel in. And take a little breath from there. Bring hands alongside the body and lift into warrior two. And now as you arrive, we're going to extend out over the front thigh to extended side angle. Then bring the hands slowly to the floor, one arm to the sky, so the chest is open. We'll leave the ground and come back into warrior two. And then from there, we'll turn the palm on the front hand into reverse warrior. Just walking the fingers down the back leg a little bit. We'll come over into our warrior two. Bring the hands high above the head. And ease the hands down onto the inside of this front leg. Now we'll bring the right hand in this case onto the hip and turn the chest open again. We'll take the hand to the back of the pelvis, the palm is facing in, and we'll slowly straighten the front leg, let the hand come away from the ground. So we'll lift it a little bit into triangle pose. And we'll soften the front knee. Bring the hand to the floor. We'll let the right hand come down to the ground again. Then we can walk both hands around to the long side of the mat, turning the toes and the heels out. Take a moment just to kind of let your hips soak up the position they're in. And then on an exhale, allow yourself to keep the spine long as you hinge from the hips downwards. Press into the feet, lift the hips high. We'll lift up halfway and walk the fingers around to the front of the mat. Right hand on the ground, left arm for the twist. Bring the hands to the floor. Now just onto the fingertips first, then bring the hands alongside your body. Lift your torso about halfway so you're following the line of your back leg, and then lengthen your arms out, palms facing in. We'll bring the hands to the floor and try to step into the front of the mat for a forward bend. Hands onto the hips. We'll let ourselves lift again. Bring hands in towards the heart. Exhale down to the ground. Take a breath. Left leg back into lunge and drop the heel in. Ready for your warrior two lift. As we arrive, we extend out. And then carefully bring one hand to the floor, one hand to the sky, keeping the chest open and shoulders relaxed. Take a breath, press away. Come back into our warrior two. Turn the palm on the front hand for that reverse warrior. Slowly come back. Bring the hands high and down onto the inside of the front leg. So this time the left hand comes to the hip. We turn the chest. We walk the fingers around to the base of the spine. We start to straighten the front leg, lifting the hand from the floor into that triangle pose. Soften the front knee. Come back into warrior two. Take the hands high, down onto the inside of the front leg. We'll walk the fingers round alongside. Turn the toes in, heels out. Allow ourselves to fold again. Just drawing the elbows towards each other a little bit, with forearms parallel. So you're starting to open the back of the shoulders in the pose as well. Keeping the shoulders and the ears free from each other. We'll lift up and walk the fingers through to the front of the mat into lunge. Left hand to the ground, right arm for the twist. Keep pressing out through the back heel, keep the hips square to the ground. Bring the hands to the floor, onto the fingertips. Hands alongside your body. Lift your body halfway. So just following the line of the back leg, press out strong. draw the hip back a little bit on the right side as well. And then fingers down to the ground. We push off the back toes into that forward bend. Good news is, whew, second page. Hands under the hips. Let ourselves lift. We'll inhale high. Hands through the heart. We'll take a breathe here. Mountain pose. The feet to acclimatize, get used to the ground beneath. When you're moving through those poses, sort of strong dynamic poses, there is a tendency for us to roll around on the feet in different ways. So bring them back to ground them down. It's something that can be appreciated in the stillness of our breath. We'll open the eyes and bring the hands in towards our heart. Allow ourselves to exhale forwards, down to the floor. We're going to step back into down dog with right and left. We'll come forwards into a plank. Half plank. Bootlaces change to up dog. Roll it back to down dog. We're going to scissor the right leg high, strong, pushing out through the toes. Come into a three-legged plank. Take a breath. Half plank. Bring the foot to the floor. Turn the other foot down. Come into up dog. Move it back into down dog. We'll do the same again. We're going to lead with the left leg. Scissor. Come forwards into the plank. Lower the foot to the ground. Bootlaces change. Half plank to up dog. Roll it back into your down dog. We'll take the right foot to the outside of the right hand and allow the back knee to come to the floor. We'll keep the toes tucked under this time. We're going to slowly press the hips towards the back of the mat. So the toes on the front foot gradually move towards the sky. And to allow us to sit down onto the heel, which is why our foot is off to the side of the mat, we can just slide the heel along the ground to bring ourselves into a toe stretch. We'll keep the tummy muscles engaged and lift the body up out of the thigh. We're going to try and press the heel away and suck the hip back into the joint at the same time, so that bilateral move through the legs. Up, straighten out. Last breath. Let ourselves lift back up. Bring the hands forwards towards the front of the mat. Lift the back knee. Ease our way back into that down dog. Then we can draw left knee to the chest and bring the foot to the outside of the mat. Ease the back knee down to the floor. Keep those toes tucked under. And try to slowly guide your hips down the center line, onto your heel, and lift the fingers up. Shoulders relax back away from the ears a little bit. Give yourself some space. Press out through the leg. And draw the thigh back at the same time. Toes are flexed skywards, and spread the toes as well. And then we can lift back up, bring the fingers into the front of the mat. We'll step back into our down dog for the final time, just to align the body, lifting up nice and high. And then we'll come onto all fours, bringing the knees underneath the hips. And we're going to walk into melting heart. So we're just going to take the hands forwards, that shoulder distance apart, palms down. Press into the hands. Those forearms feel strong. Engaging the triceps and the biceps. We'll press into the shins a little bit, draw the belly in. Try and get a nice line between the hands, the shoulders, and the hips. So we're not sinking in. We are working, pressing against the floor. We're using the resistance and pushing away from that. So we're kind of working with our own muscular strength and body weight. Last breath in. We'll just walk the fingers back to bring ourselves into child's pose. We're going to bring the hands underneath the forehead this time and the elbows out wide. And we'll let the head lift. Coming on to all fours for thread the needle. So we want to make sure the wrists are underneath the shoulders, the knees underneath the hips. We'll start with the right side, lifting the hand up towards the sky and turning the chest open. We'll feed that through and under. Let the shoulder and ear come to the ground. Now take a breath here and roll the top shoulder behind you so your eyes can lift towards the sky. Then press into the floor on the next exhale to come back up. Inhale the hand on the left side to the sky and fold that under and do exactly the same. Shoulder into the ground. Take the inhale, rolling that top shoulder up and back. Then press into the floor. Come back onto all fours. We'll take the right side again. There's the lead. And follow through. Top shoulder rolls back. Press into the floor on the exhale. Last side, left. Now we'll let the knees come wide. We'll sit back onto the heels again, so toes touching. And we're sort of in a halfway position between the tabletop and child's pose, which is where we want to stay. We're going to take the left arm and feed that out towards the right side of the mat. Then drop the shoulder and ear to the floor. So as you do that, you'll notice that your right arm kind of buckles at the elbow. So we'll walk those fingers out towards the front of the mat to a nice straight arm. Take a breath. And then we'll begin to walk the fingers, keeping the arm straight, over towards the left side so that we can roll the body up a little bit. Chest, rolling a little bit more over to that right side. So the top arm probably pressing down on your ear, or at least the side of your head. And try to have, as much as you can, a relaxed strategy, so a passive stretch rather than forcing your way into a pose. We really want those muscles to absolutely open up by themselves, in particular the pectoral muscles of the right arm. We'll take a last breath there. To come out of that, we're going to walk the hand back over to the right side, and then walk the hand back in until we get that bent elbow and the shoulders drawn back, and press in, use the belly a little bit to support, and we'll come back up. Moving my glasses back up. We'll take it out to the second side, easing your way down, and then walking the fingers out when you're ready. So first of all, we go to the front of the mat and allow yourself to just work there. Within the shoulder joint to open up. A little bit of nerve conditioning, getting used to the position we're in. Then we'll start to walk the fingers across. Again, we're going to try to keep that as best we can with a straight elbow, straight arm, so that we start to turn the body over. So at that point, it might get a little difficult to hear me as I'm kind of pressing my arm against the microphone as well that's in my ear. So apologies if you can hear that ruffling around. Once you're in position, see if you can relax. And then we'll walk hand back out to the left side, back in towards the body. Press away gently as we exhale. Whew. And then bring the feet together, or knees together a little bit. We'll lift up and just pivot the feet out to the side. And we come down to the floor. Hopefully that block is still close by the side of you. We'll roll the spine down to the floor using the hands behind, and carefully let the head roll back down to the floor. And we're going to wriggle out through the hips and shoulders, and then allow the arms to come out wide like a crucifix, and the hands are in line with the chest rather than the top of the shoulders. So certainly a long way from the top of your head. And we'll bring the feet together, knees together. And shimmy the hips over to the left, a fraction. And then when your pelvis is back on the ground, you can roll your body on your legs over towards the right side, keeping your shoulders on the ground. I'm going to take the right hand and just give a little bit more weight to that top leg coming down. So I'm not pushing, I'm not really pulling, I'm just holding. And we'll let the legs come back up. Realign the spine, and then take the hips again over to the right side, legs come to the left. That left hand just sits on top. We're going to bring the legs back up, just back into the center. And we're going to use the block. So we're going to use it on the thin edge to the ground, but in landscape and across the back of the pelvis. We're going to lift into bridge pose and then place this under the pelvis. So I want to be at the top end of the pelvis where the spine just starts to meet into the pelvis itself. So take a little time to lift in and make sure that your block edge is flat to the floor. And we're just letting a little bit of body weight sink into the block. We don't want it all because the blocks will deform. And then they could spring out from underneath us, which wouldn't be particularly safe. We're going to have the feet a little wider than perhaps normally we would in bridge pose. So I'm going to take the feet more to the outer edge of the mat, certainly wider than my shoulders, of which I'm going to wriggle down into the floor a little bit. And I'm going to turn the toes in a touch and let the knees deliberately move towards the center line. I'm going to see if I can lift my arms towards the sky and let the hands drift down behind me. Now, I haven't got quite enough space this morning, so scarecrow arms. So I'm not taking a whole lot of weight through that block. The legs are still working, the spine is still working. But it gives me a point to work with and know where I am. I can tell whether I'm starting to drop or whether I'm lifting too high. I can listen to the other muscles in the body and see how they're reacting to this longer holding bridge. I'm hoping with the period of time that we spend here that you can start to feel the muscles along the vertebrae opening out a little bit, and also across the front of the hip flexors, a little bit of stretching going there as well. Thighs, hamstrings and buttocks all feel like they're working, and I'm hoping that it feels like the workload between the legs, between the thighs, the hamstrings and the buttocks is consistent on both sides. And you'd be surprised how many people's glutes don't fire up simultaneously. So this is a nice time to start to go, okay, how does my body work? How do I get one leg to fire up a little more if I need to? Do I need to press down a little bit more, in my case on the left foot and into the right, to get that left glute to join in. Last breath here. And lift that spine a little bit so you can ease your hands back underneath and move the block out from underneath. And then take a breath or two to roll your spine gently back down to the floor. Generally, the feeling is that the floor has moved away from you somehow, and it's run away. And it's like, oh, I remember it being there. And that's your spine flattening out. Okay, we'll take a little breath from here and just slide the feet gently out to the corner edges of the mat. Let the legs go. And take the hands out to the side. Now you can have your head flat to the ground, or you can use a pillow or the block underneath. I use the block just so it's then easier for me to look towards the clock. Otherwise I can end up pulling my neck muscles if I'm down on the ground. But if I had the opportunity to be the student rather than the teacher, I would be minus a block and enjoying it. So making good with what I have. Softening the jaw with the eyes closed, maybe licking the lips a few times. Allow yourself to just have that last little wriggle and stretch. Now we've been here for 30, 40 seconds or so. And back to being still and breathing. Begin to stretch those fingers and toes. Now the wrists and the ankles to begin to move. And as we bring ourselves back into the room, just reconnecting. We'll allow ourselves to stretch out in any way that feels good. And we'll carefully slide the heels along the ground towards us. One leg at a time. Keeping that spine nicely on the ground and supported. We'll let the knees drift in and take a very loose hug. Again, just looking after the lower back muscles and the spine. We're just trying to keep the whole body nice and relaxed, not any tension in. When you're ready, allow yourself to rock very gently onto your right side, keeping the knees towards you, relax into the floor. Turn the chest down, use your hands to press on the exhale and feed yourself back up slowly into a seated posture of choice. And then join me, hopefully, with your hands into your heart. Close the eyes. And take a breath in. Use the exhale to drop the chin. Finding the belly drawn to the spine, simply bow to the floor. The spine starts to build with the breath. So let the head follow and the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed. And see you again on that soon. Take care for now.